This is how I learned the bebop language, and it's not as complicated as you might think. I am by no means the best bebop sax player out there, but I do know my fair share of jazz tradition. This is the exercise that really unlocked the bebop language for me, and it's all about breaking it down into smaller pieces, into smaller building blocks. I started by working on my chord arpeggiations. Major 7 chords, minor 7 chords, dominant chords, minor 7 flat 5 chords, all kinds of chords, and working on arpeggiating them throughout the form of different standards. So here's an example on how I would apply this to a 2-5-1 to F major. So G minor 7, C7, F major. I'd start by arpeggiating all the chords, like this. Now that is the first building block for this exercise. The second building block is going to be bebop scales. A lot of people are familiar with the dominant 7 bebop scale. It's basically a Mixolydian scale that includes a major 7th as well as the flat 7th. And the purpose of this scale, and this is important, is that it makes all the chord tones land on the heavy beats of the bar. And when you know that, you can construct different kinds of bebop scales. Really any scale that adds chromatic notes to make the chord tones land on the heavy beats of the bar. Now to apply this to the 2-5-1 to F major, you could just say that the G minor 7 and C7 is a giant C7 chord and you just play the C dominant bebop scale. Or you could play a minor bebop scale on the 2 chord. There are so many ways to approach this, so just pick something, practice that, and then change it up when you feel like. I'm going to play a bebop scale on the G minor, another bebop scale on the C7, and a new bebop scale on the F major 7. Like this. Now you have 2 building blocks that you can put together to create some very bebop sounding language. The arpeggiations and the bebop scale. When you start practicing this, just start with the arpeggiations in root positions. And then when you know that, you can move on to first inversion, second inversion, and so on. And the bebop scales, you don't have to play the full scale. You can play just a few notes, or you can play the entire thing. It's all up to you. Now let's put it together. Do a arpeggiation for the minor 7 chord and a bebop scale for the dominant chord. Now we can make that transition even smoother by resolving the minor 7 arpeggiation to the 3rd of the dominant chord. And then we play a bebop scale starting on the 3rd of the dominant chord. This means we're going to be stretching the chord changes a little bit, making the dominant chord start 2 beats earlier and last for 2 beats longer. Now all that's left to do is to try to find a way to resolve this to the 1 chord. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to do a very simple move from the flat 9 down to the 3rd of the 1 chord. And that sounds something like this. To me, the purpose of this exercise is not to say play this or that over any 2-5-1 progression. It's to break it down into smaller building blocks. I would compare this approach to learning words as opposed to sentences. Anyone can learn to say a couple of sentences in a language, but that doesn't mean you can speak it. But if you learn the words and how to put them together, then you can say what you want to say. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful to you, or if you have any other great exercises for bebop vocabulary.